Hello, folks. How y'all doing today? You know, folks, it's interesting to me that no media outlet in America seriously addresses Antifa. Now, for those of you who don't know, Antifa is what would it be? An anagram, I suppose, for anti-fascist action or anti-fascist in action or whatever. And it was first founded in Germany. These are when you hear about the communists fighting in the streets, excuse me, with the Nazis, quote unquote. You've all heard that narrative. I wager you must have. These are those actual communists. The actual communists, not some shadow man, some boogeyman, some scarecrow, some media fabrication, but real organizational, linear, financial descendants of the same communists that the SA and the German police were roughing it up with in the late 20s and until the National Socialist ascension to power. Now, upon which, of course, they were outlawed. Now, then they came back after World War II, and in fine, they exist in Europe heavily. Now, in America, they haven't been discussed as much. This is largely because it does seem that the American media favors the actions of Antifa. That's our impression of the situation. That the people who would have favored Hillary, the people who are still agitating to try to overthrow Donald Trump, the same exact people who are pushing to delegitimize the alt-right and white identity and anything that's not PC, bland, my taxes, my constitution, and whatnot, they back Antifa. Antifa is their street rumble, their muscle, as it were, you know. And so, folks, it might be profitable to take a look at well, let's look at what they've done in Europe. Let's look how they act in Europe. Okay. Now, this is essentially what Antifa does. Antifa makes it so that anything they don't agree with, and they're extremely, for all their talk about freedom and all these buzzwords they use, they're extremely rigidly minded. I'm almost as fanatical as a Catholic monk in some ways, but I'm not even as rigid-minded as they are. They're really, I'm sure they have exactly one way you have to wipe your behind, or you're a fascist. Do you understand? Right? Maybe even using paper to wipe your behind. I haven't gotten that far. I don't want to get that far into it. But what I do know is they're very intolerant people that demand tolerance. They're very violent people that demand peace. They're very loud people that demand that you be silent. Okay? That's what Antifa does. They'll come to any gathering that they don't agree with. Anything that they don't agree with. And that the police will allow them, of course, now. And they will riot, and they will scream, and they will stage the most obscene street theater, okay? And they will do everything possible, including violence, including rioting, looting, pillaging, burning, arson, okay, to break up your meeting, to make it impossible for anyone who agrees anything, even just a little bit different from them, to speak. And by this, I'd like to make it understood, all you cucky-ducky GOP conservative, people who think you're going to duck the bullet here. No, Antifa considers you to be full members of the neo-Nazi class. You are a born reactionary oppressor if you're white and male. You're just going to have to deal with that. That's their ideology. You cannot negotiate with them. You cannot bargain with them. It can't be done. They're insane. Okay? And when they have succeeded in legitimizing being able to show up at any given set of people's discussions and conduct violence against them, they will come for you country club Republicans. They'll vector in on you. You see, the Antifa understand that us working class and poorer segments, we don't have very much to pillage, you know? But you money bag people, you can be held a little more hostage. And they do this in Europe. I mean, it's not supposed to be mentioned, but yeah. Yeah, it's pretty obvious that at times certain political parties just kind of pay Antifa to go away. It's a protection racket. Not very much different than the mafia in a lot of ways, except for Marxist orientated, with a whole dollop of all of that crazy Freudian gender LGBTQ barbecue thing going on, you know? Right? Okay? And they hate you. If you're anywhere center of far left, they hate you. There are two settings: Antifa and people Antifa accept, and fascists. If you're not an Antifa and you don't think that you would belong in that group of anarchist hippies, then by definition, do you know what you are, Jack? You're a fascist. Now that's their worldview. This is the black and white dichotomy they live in. These people, they have a whole narrative where you're evil because you're an oppressor and continuing a backwards reactionary patriarchal system, and any violence conducted against you is valid according to this Antifa a lot. And there's a whole lot of way travelers with Antifa. So you see, this is another thing that no one seems to want to discuss, is that Antifa began as a front, as what the communists call a united front, where there were social democrats, where there were liberal progressives, where there were communists. Anarchist communists were the bulk, anarchists, and they all said, hey, if we band together, we can fight these fascists better. And by fascists, of course, they meant even the Catholic Party, which was the center party in Germany when the National Socialists and the communists were having their power struggle to the death. Even they were considered fascists by Antifa. Do you understand? Okay, they were extremely radical from the get-go, and they have got no less radical now. They've just went underground and been given media cover. Good. Now that we understand, they will, if they could, kick in your teeth. They will break open your head. They would very willingly, at one of these riots, steal your wallet, use all the information against there, steal everything you own, break into your home, burglarize it, vandalize it, maybe even hurt your children and your pets. Okay? Some of them are extremely sick and twisted individuals, and they have absolute ideological purity, so that they're forgiven in the sense that the same way that the Cheka agents or the KGB or the GPU or any of these other Soviet agencies were told, you know, by the Marxist theory that these people are reactionaries and they're here to destroy the people's achievements. Da-da-da-ba-da-da, pink in the basement, people die. Okay? If you think it can't happen here, listen. The one thing that Marx taught that's true is that quick changes are possible. Okay? All right? The rest of it's, how he got to that point is insane, and from there it's crazy. But that one observation is, yeah, you know, a house is stable, it's rotten, it falls. Okay? Well, you know, these Antifa, I mean, they're literally running around cities, toppling statues. Okay, look, Antifa are smart enough to use front groups. So BLM, all these Islamic groups, all these student groups, I'm sure Antifa has their fingers in them. Okay? And of course, people who used to fund what we would call international communism have their fingers in Antifa. You see, all of these worker international movements, they are always Cadillac socialist movements. They're always ruled by Wall Street socialists. Every time. It's amazing. It's the regularity of this is so predictable, do you know? But this doesn't make these Antifa any less dangerous, even to their own masters. Let me make this clear. These Antifa are, again, we've mentioned this term earlier here, anarchist communists. You're going to want to go look that up. It's its own special brand of deadly. Yeah, deadly. I would say that the first outbreak of that is the Paris Commune. And they claim it. They claim it as their own. To an extent, they even claim the Jacobins. Okay, they're perfectly willing to claim the mass murder of the Jackmans. They don't even care. It's perfectly okay with them. They don't even shudder to embrace what the Bolsheviks did. Pol Pot is one of their open disciples. There were these folks running around the Ukraine for a few years that were of this particular brand, and they were so vicious that when the Bolsheviks showed up to clean them out, it doesn't seem that the peasants even put up any resistance to getting rid of them. So, you just make of that what you will. When a Red Army is actually welcomed to some point, yeah, this is how bad these people are. And in Cambodia, they were so bad that the NVA were not particularly seen as conquerors in the early years. Right. Pol Pot and his bunch were ruthless. And these Antifa are no less insane. They would force the most insane, dystopic, abnormal, anti-natural so-called norms on the rest of us and kill anyone that wouldn't conform to it. They would use, essentially, what is Kropotkin's theory of the natural reactionary. And they essentially believe that there are people who are born, irredeemable and who cannot go forward into progress and so forth and so on, okay? And they will kill you. And I want to make it clear to you that you people who own wealth, you're squarely in their targets. No matter if you round on us or not. In fact, frankly, since poor so-called racist people like myself are the only people who ever give Antifa a scrap, you probably should lay off our ass and be worried about your actual enemies, the people who want to steal your things and bash in your head, because that's what Antifa do. This isn't a joke. I mean, they run around Europe with sticks and stones, and I mean, when I say stones, I mean bottles full of concrete and other projectile weapons that they use to break people's bones. Yeah, that's not iffy. That's a real thing, And eventually, if you keep allowing this tide of their violence against what you consider to be an evil down here at the bottom, it's going to come up to you in Uptown. And by that time, you won't be able to stop it because it'll be huge with mass support, with all these people saying, yeah, these people are right, yeah, and you don't want this. I don't want this. Nobody in their fucking right mind wants this, So what we need to do here, folks, particularly you ritzy folks, I'm even hoping there's some security agents that are going to listen to this. You're going to want to use your resources to expose Antifa so that they never can come and put you in a ditch. Right? Because that's what communists do. They dig big ditches and they kill people and put them in them. Yeah.